Well, good morning again, church. I love saying good morning. I'm a clapper and a cheerer, and I love everything, so I'm trying to adjust and tone myself down just a little bit. Let me say this. I'm just going to speak my mind for a second. Usually, when there's a women's retreat, like there are 33 women gone for a women's retreat, that means 66 people don't come to church. You know what I mean? But I see a lot of guys out here that are flying solo, so I'm going to give you a little kudos. Nicely done, guys. Nicely done. So today we're talking about a new commandment I give to you, right? A new commandment. You see, Jesus is telling us over here, the first part of it is, well, to love one another. I mean, that's nothing new. We've been hearing about that for a long time, all the way in not just the Ten Commandments, but even before that, we've been told to love one another for quite a while. The thing that has a different twist is this. Love one another as I have loved you. Now be a very good Sunday school class for me, and you could say whatever the right answer is, but just make sure it's the right answer here. What is the greatest love and sacrifice that Jesus Christ did for us? It's the what? Crickets? Say it. Begins with a C and ends with a Ross. The cross, thank you very much. All right. Oh, they're like, is he trying to trick me right now? Right? It's the cross, exactly. This great and triumphal sacrifice for our own sake, right? To save us from our own sin. We get that, right? We have the cross. Very good. So Jesus is saying, love one another as I have loved you. Jesus, that cross thing is tough. I mean, it's so tough. In fact, you had to come and do it for our own sake. So do you think Jesus is talking about the cross specifically here? Not that I see some shakes. Not really so much, right? The answer is a little bit yes, but a little bit more than that. And we see that in John 13. It starts with the washing of the feet. And that's really where the focus is for Jesus' commandment. To love one another as I have loved you, right? As I have washed your feet. Now, has anyone here ever done like a Maundy Thursday service where they actually have like a washing of the feet? Right? I've been part of churches that have done it where there's like stations of the cross and there's a foot washing station. It's wrong. Don't do it. I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean it's weird to have someone else wash your feet. And what I mean by that, especially someone you don't know, it's like, hi, I'm a vicar. I was a vicar. I'm a vicar here. I'm here to wash your feet. And they're like, no thanks. The thing is, it's not about washing the feet. It's what's around that. It's about Jesus washing the feet and what that really means. So Jesus, when it comes to this command, love one another as I have loved you, there's 2 points Jesus is really making here, and it's this. There are these 2 points. And we'll go to the next slide. Oh, maybe it's not that. All right, but I'll tell you, Jesus calls us to love others in action and by allowance. Those are the 2 main points. In action and by allowance. So how do we love one another in action and by allowance? Well, we have a whole sermon on that for you today. So we'll unpack that expediently, but really well for you. Let's start off with the first point, right? The first point is this. Love is sometimes a feeling, but it's always an action. Love is sometimes a feeling, but it's always an action, right? I feel loved sometimes, and love makes me feel good. It's kind of what we're getting at here, right? Love sometimes feels good, like this, for example. Right? When I get to go to my next slide and I get to eat pizza and watch the Bears and maybe even drink a beer, I'll tell you what, love can feel good. Right? I love beer, I love pizza, and I love the Bears. Amen. Praise God, right? And I'll tell you what, this may sound pretty much like heaven, especially if the Bears win, but it's so much more than that. Love is so much more than a feeling. Love is so much more than just feeling good. Right? Or my next example is this. Love is so much more than romance. Love can be romantic, but it's so much more than that. This is a little picture of It's a Wonderful Life, right? Mary loves Jimmy Stewart, right? Maybe I'll do a Jimmy Stewart impression for you sometime in private, not being recorded on Zoom. She loves Jimmy Stewart. She loves Georgie. Why? He sacrificed his hearing. He jumped in to save his little brother. She's attracted to him. She's attracted to him because he's Jimmy Stewart. Whether you think he's Jimmy Stewart or not is up to you, right? But she's attracted to him because he's handsome and because he did something that's worth being attracted to. But the term romantic means more than that, right? Love is a romantic situation. It's always ideal. It's always so nice, right? Love is so much more than an ideal situation or romance. And in fact, love is so much more. Love can be tolerant, right? Love can be tolerant, but honestly, it's so much more than that. And what I mean by tolerant is, just yesterday, my son ate all his dinner. I was very happy. And he was happy too. He was so happy that his handful of barbecue sauce then slapped me on the back and told me, good job, Daddy. I'm like, I was tolerant of that for the sake of something else, right? I was tolerant of my son and his barbecue saucy hand. But that's not exactly what love is. Love is so much more than that. In fact, up here, my wife is tolerant of my inability to understand how to do laundry. I'll tell you what, when I was single, I put everything in the wash, I put everything in the dryer, and it was done. It's a little more complicated than that, so I've been told, right? Separating things like that. I'm not allowed to wash her stuff is the new deal. Why? Because, she's tolerant. She's like, I'll take care of it, honey. Don't worry about it. But love is so much more than just being tolerant. And it all kind of comes together with this. This is a broken TV. A friend of mine from college shared this on Facebook. And here's the thing. He's a Christian pastor. And good thing. Because his son was playing ball in the house right before church and broke his TV. I'll tell you what, it might shape my sermon a little bit, or that communion's got to hit a little bit harder if that was me. And I say this because, let me tell you what he read. This is what he wrote on his Facebook. It said this: a part of the reason God gives us children is to teach and practice what we preach, especially regarding forgiveness. Jesus really had to take the wheel when I found out my boy broke my TV right before church playing ball. Gratefully, let me skip something. Material things can be replaced. My child cannot. I'm grateful to be his dad and teach him hard lessons as he grows from a boy into the man God has made him to be. So the lesson learned with this broken TV, I see a couple dads out there where there's like a tear going on. It's all right. Hang in there. The lesson behind this TV is love a feeling? Well, if love was a feeling here for his son, it's not a good one. Love's certainly not a feeling in this situation. Is love romantic? Oh, my son, he's just the perfect son. There's no way my son could have broke this TV playing ball in the house. It must have exploded on its own. Love's not romantic. It's not an ideal situation here. Is love tolerance here? As one dad from another, it better not be, right? Love is not simply tolerating a wrong. Instead here, love was a service. And that's what we're getting to with Jesus here in the washing of the feet. Love is a service. He took his son aside, and out of love, he taught him something more into becoming what it meant to be the man God made him to be. Love is action. Love is a service. And we get into it here with Jesus. To review, so he got up from his meal, took off his outer garment, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. When he had finished washing their feet, he put his clothes back on and returned to them. Do you understand what I have done for you? He asked. You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now, I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet. You should also wash one another's feet. I have set an example that you should do as I have done for you. Very truly, I say to you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. So again, I have given you an example of what to do. I have shown you that love is indeed a service, rather than just hanging out. We'll get to that in a second. But love is an action, an act of service. During the same narrative, kind of what happens in Luke 22, verse 24, we get a glimpse of it. The disciples were out walking, talking about which amongst them was the greatest. So imagine they're walking into dinner off the street. They're still discussing about amongst one another, who amongst us is the greatest? Do you think they had foot washing on their mind at that time? Not exactly. Let's go to the next slide for me. So this is cute because it's a little kid in like the mud and their feet are dirty, right? This kind of give you a visual stimulation. I'll tell you what, do not Google like dirty adult feet, right? I couldn't do it. I couldn't put the image up there. Why? Because I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, I can't look at it. And I say that because this was a disgusting service to do, especially back then. When they walked around, they just had straps of leather on their feet that were tied on, right? So to kind of paint that picture a little bit more for you, right, to wash their feet, the streets were just full of dust and dirt and animal droppings. Their feet were covered in sores and blisters. They were often wounded and infected. So much so, right, the owner of a household, the washing of the feet was given to the lowest ranking servant. But if you were Jewish and you had only Jewish servants, you couldn't even give them that task because it was too below a Jew to wash the feet of anybody. So they had to go get a Gentile servant that would come and do the foot washing. That's how degrading it was to them at that time. So not only are they coming in off the street talking about who's the greatest, Jesus is sitting there and he's saying, well, you're talking about who's the greatest. It's obviously me, but I'm going to, not me, Jesus me, right? Jesus is going to show them that love is an action, not an attraction. And I say that because, I'm going to confess for myself, feet are not my thing, right? Feet are not my thing, but you're talking about what I would say one of the ugliest parts of people. They're covered in sores, they're bleeding, they're filthy. Jesus says, that's not an attractive service I'm going to provide for you, but love is an action, not an attraction. And I say that because pride often holds us back from loving others. Very often, because the act of loving you is beneath me. The act of loving you is just too yuck. The act of loving you, well, maybe I should just be righteously angry with you because you broke my TV. Love is taking not just a step back, but a step down and loving one another as a service. Because again, we go to those, put up those muddy feet for me. Oh, my clean feet. I think I missed that in the first service, right? That's the nice thing, right? Those are cute little baby feet, because even clean adult feet are gross. But over here, right? So the feet, they're muddy, they're dirty. Jesus says, he shows us that even if loving people feels like it's beneath you, Jesus says, I'm in here and I'm getting dirty. I'm involved. Jesus literally takes his hands and plunges it into our filth to clean the ugliest parts of us. That's what he's trying to display when he's showing you to love others the way that he loves us. Love is getting involved, and it's getting involved in the messiest and often filthiest parts of people's lives. And we say love is sometimes a feeling, love is sometimes romantic, love is sometimes tolerance. Well, love is always an action, and love is always like that. You know, when someone falls ill, when you go out of their way and you do things for them in ways to show them that you love them, but love is even deeper than that. When I say the messiest, filthiest parts of our lives, it's when relationships are broken, when you wipe away a tear from someone's eye. Honestly, love is changing adult diapers. It seems beneath us. It seems too messy. It seems too filthy. And Jesus is telling you that I'm showing you, this is a demonstration of how to love others the way that I have loved you. For your sake, I got this filthy. For your sake, I got this messy. For your sake, I showed you what love really is. Because what else he's saying is love isn't just tolerating the filth. It's not just letting it slip by, because those feet, they could stay dirty. They could get infected. All those little acts of service, they can just stay messy and disgusting. And Jesus is saying, washing your feet, that may have seemed gross, but what I'm about to do for you is so much greater in the cross. It's so much greater. Instead of leaving you filthy and disgusting, I love this image. It takes Jesus' crimson blood to wash us white as snow. Now you can put up the cute baby feet. There we go. It takes the blood of Jesus to wash away our filth, to make us white as snow. God just doesn't tolerate the filth. You know, when I kind of read about that word in particular, right? Tolerance seems like it's the opposite of love. Because if I really love somebody, if I see them hurting themselves, am I just going to let it happen? No, of course I wouldn't. I wouldn't leave them filthy. I wouldn't leave them dirty. I would act in love. I would seek to help. If you see someone literally running off a cliff face, do you just say, well, I'll sit here and tolerate it and let it happen? No, you run and you stop them from running off a cliff. If you really love them. If you don't, then you just kind of let it happen. You know, to love others, Jesus is demonstrating to us you need to wash feet. You need to get dirty. You need to get even filthy, because real love is seeing who they are in their cleanliness through the eyes of Christ. As we're wrapping up the sermon over here, the last couple points I have for you. This statement is one for myself, but maybe a lot of you will reflect on it too. We have a tendency to think we're a lot more mature than we really are. And if that's a surprise to you, you probably needed to hear that. We have a tendency to think we're a lot more mature than we really are because we tend to listen more to our pride and say, indeed, you know what? There are things that are definitely beneath us. There are things that are just way too filthy and way too messy for me to get involved with. And when pride tells us to stop, Jesus tells us to go. To go and love others in a way that's far above pride. And this leads us to our second point. I know I told you I cut stuff out. We're skipping over to the second point. And the second point is this: to love others is to allow ourselves to be loved by them. This is what I mean by love by allowance. To love others is to allow ourselves to be loved by them. A very basic example I have of this for you is if my son, who's 2 years old, mind you, colors for me on a piece of construction paper and like glue shapes onto it and hands it to me and says, "Daddy, I made this for you." Do I look at him and say, "What is this garbage? You didn't color in the lines. You were supposed to cut squares. That's definitely not a square. What is this? Just throw it in the trash." That may sound like, "Oh, what are you doing?" But allow that to alarm you for a second. Because loving him, to love him is allowing him to love me. Are you kind of getting that sense of it now? And often, we don't allow ourselves to be loved because do you feel like, right, that you're hard to love? Or do you feel like it's hard to let other people love you? Because I'll tell you what, if you come and try and help me carry something, you're like, "Chris, do you need any help with that?" I always say what? "Nah, I've got this." I heard someone say it. "I've got this," when we really don't. But I don't want to allow myself to be loved. Why is that? We often see being loved as humiliating rather than humbling. We often see if I need to let you love me, that it's ineptitude rather than a reflection of gratitude. That's what pride does. That's that big reversal that we have going on over here, that being loved is humiliating instead of humbling when we listen to pride. Because in reality, what we want to be seen as, skip to the image for me, as this. "Yeah, the brawny man. I'm not a mess. You're a mess, and I'm here to clean it up." We want to be seen as the brawny man. We want to be seen as stoic. I need to be seen as, I don't need to be loved. I'm the one that comes to do the cleanup. I'm the self-made man. I'm a master of my destiny. Do you see my mustache? Right? I've pulled myself up by my bootstraps. I'm not the one that needs to be I need to be unreliant, not reliant. I'm independent, not dependent. We read that little twist over here, and that comes in John 13, verses 5 through 8 with Peter. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and wipe them with the towel that was wrapped around him. And he came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, do you wash my feet?" And Jesus answered him, "What I am doing now you do not understand, but afterwards you will." Peter said to him, "You shall never wash my feet." And Jesus answered him, "If I do not wash you, you have no share with me." He's telling Peter, "Peter, if you're going to be so proud that you won't let me do this for you, you're going to lose everything." That's what it means to submit to Jesus. It means to submit to the love that he has for you. Jesus is saying, if you don't rely on me, if you don't let me love you, if you feel like you are too pious or too clean to be loved, you have no part with me. If you feel like me loving you is embarrassing, if it's humiliating, if you think just washing your feet is dirty, or filthy or unclean, this is a pale comparison to what I will do for you on the cross. So when we look around at each other, are we clean? Am I the brawny man? It's funny, there was another image I was going to put up there. Their old slogan, and I only say this as this is, what do I want to say, a warning. It seemed a little culturally inappropriate. Their original logo was that man, and it said pure white on it. Pure white, meaning it's the purest clean you could ever be. It's the purest you could ever be. Am I the brawny man? Am I the purest that I could ever be? Am I clean? The answer is no. And that's what this story, that's what this love of Jesus is really trying to point your eyes to. Not only is loving others in action, loving others is realizing how filthy you are and how much you rely on God to love you. It's to know the extremes in which he had to crawl through, the filth in which God had to clean away, the extremes in which his crimson blood, I love that image, his crimson blood makes us white as snow. So to review it all, Jesus came and he says, I have a new commandment for you, to love others as I have loved you. And we say, great. And then we take a step back and go, hold on, what does that mean? The way we love others is by actually doing something. By actually doing something. We love others in service because Jesus came, he washed feet. And he refused to tolerate people walking down a path of destruction. He not only showed us how to love one another, but indeed how much we need to be loved. And it's a mission that was so important. It was so crucial to God that he came and endured the cross for its sake, to save us and show us his great love. And again, to give us this commandment, to love one another as I have loved you. And all God's people said, amen.